why is he no longer in Brooklyn?
Hey, Greeny, I think the biggest reason Kevin Durant's no longer in Brooklyn is that he didn't want to be in Brooklyn anymore, and he wanted to be in Phoenix. This is a franchise, a team that was at the very top of his list last summer when he asked out and then, of course, rescinded the trade offer prior to preseason. But he told the Nets in recent days, and certainly since the Kyrie Irving trade, that if there was a deal to be made with the Suns, he would like them to make it. And those discussions really gathered momentum late last night when the Nets were able to get in the deal what they wanted, certainly those 4 unprotected first-round picks, but Mikal Bridges, that was the key to a deal for the Nets. And Kevin Durant now goes to a Suns organization with a new owner and Matt Ishbia, who just started on the job, just approved by the Board of Governors last week. He and Joe Tsai, the Nets owner, the Nets GM Sean Marks, James Jones, the GM in Phoenix, they went through this deal last night. Phoenix, into the evening was, fairly serious and very engaged with doing a 3-team deal that would have potentially landed them John Collins from Atlanta. But it got to a point last night where Phoenix saw the opportunity, Matt Ishbia, their new owner, saw the opportunity to get one of the great players in the history of this league who's still at the apex of his game, and Kevin Durant. And he went the distance, 11 midnight, and they got this deal done in the wee hours. And so Durant is on his way to Phoenix, and Brooklyn, this grand experiment of Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, it is officially over.
Yeah, absolutely. Woj, stay close by because A, who knows what else may happen. Oh, by the way, the trade deadline is coming up this afternoon. And B, feel free to continue filling in blanks here as I want to bring Legs and Windy into the conversation as well here. And Legs, here's what I find remarkable. A week ago this morning, you were in this room with me, and I asked you the question, could you see this Brooklyn Nets team, when KD comes back healthy, being a legitimate contender to win the championship? And you said yes. And 6 days later, we find ourselves where we find ourselves now. Have you ever seen anything like what has happened to the Brooklyn Nets in the past week?
No, I haven't. And now you look at this, Greeny, and I think we're talking about something that's going to go down. I think it's not just maybe the greatest underachievement in the history of the NBA. This is one of the greatest underachievements in the history of team sports. Because when they put these 3 guys together, that should have been guaranteed titles. I think it was the greatest collection of offensive talent ever assembled at the top of one roster when all 3 guys were there. And the reason that I felt that way about the Nets last week was because I think this was the best stretch Kyrie Irving had as a Net. He looked bought in. He looked engaged. The Nets had run off at one point 18 out of 20 when Durant was still playing. So you're thinking, well, get him back, and they're going to be right there in the mix with those top 3 in the East. The one thing, though, that they overestimated was guys' willingness to buy in for the long haul and be committed to be in the foxhole together, no matter what. And they made a huge overestimation there. They had a gamble that didn't pay off. And now you look up, and yeah, they got a lot back in return, but they are now left without a single star. And they started this entire experiment with 3 of the biggest stars in the game and 3 of the best offensive players this league has ever seen. And now you end up with 1 playoff series win to show for it 3.5 years later. It's really absolutely incredible.
If the Nets wanted to say, hey, we're going to rebuild, we're going to go into a full rebuild, or we're not going to try to compete and build around Kevin Durant, maybe they do the Lakers trade and get the 27 and 29 first-round picks. They didn't do that. And as these conversations with the Suns were starting to gather a little momentum and a little bit more momentum, and there's a little more back and forth, the Nets were still having parallel conversations all around the league on deals that were going to make this team, in their minds, better. Could they get OG Anunoby? Could they get John Collins? A Karis LeVert in Cleveland? Really, any of the available or potentially available players in the league, they were talking on and trying to get deals, potential deals done, and at the same time showing Kevin Durant, here's what we might be able to do here. Here's what we could do here. And then really at the apex of it last night when they were about to get the deal done with the Suns, the Nets, Kevin Durant looks at what the trade is from Phoenix, because if you're Kevin Durant, and he went through this all summer last year, okay, you might want to go to Miami, any of the teams that he had interest in, Boston. What does that team look like after they trade for me? So what am I arriving? Is there enough left there for me to win with? And he looked at what that Suns deal was, what that trade would be, and still wanted to go. And then the Nets decided, okay, we're going to do the deal. But all the way into the evening, they were still putting together potential trades with the idea that they were going to keep Kevin Durant. And that was the kind of parallel path the Nets have been on really the last 72, 96 hours, really since Kyrie Irving was traded on Sunday.
It's extraordinary insight. And I mean, there is no drama quite like NBA drama. Legs, help me try and digest some of this. I mean, how you just heard this conversation, and I'm so glad, Windy, that you brought that up, and then Woj, that you filled in all the blanks there for us, because those are the two things, the two trades, the two monster trades the Nets made in the last, whatever it is, 4 days, do not feel as though they fit together like pieces in a jigsaw puzzle. So, Legs, how do you take all this in?
Yeah, listen, you're right. These trades were not connected in a way that was going to lay out the best path going forward for the Brooklyn Nets. There's no question about it. I mean, think about it. They got 3 small forwards in one night. I mean, that doesn't sound like the plan for any team to have, right, when you're trying to build a complete roster on the floor. That's what they end up with. And I think really now the story is going to become, look at what is going on in the Western Conference with the number of star players. Just start writing them down on paper, because I did it last night. And I don't know that any conference at any time in the history of the league has had more star power congregated than the Western Conference does right now. And what does that all spell for teams like Denver and Memphis, who have had great regular seasons to this point? A team like Sacramento, who's been such a great story, could end up in 3 seed. Well, all that's going to change now. Look, I still love Denver's team. Memphis, I think, now takes a step back in terms of expecting them to come out of the West. But now you look at the teams like Phoenix and Dallas and the Clippers getting Kawhi Leonard back playing well, what the Lakers just did, the Golden State Warriors' best, I think, is yet to come once they get Curry. Look at the bottom half of what the Western Conference playoffs are going to look like. You are going to have some home teams, most likely higher-seeded teams, get bounced in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. It is going to be the wildest ride we've ever seen, because I've never seen a list of names like this. When you start writing them down, you're talking about some guys gathered that potentially could be top 10, top 15, top 20 players of all time that are now all gathered in one place, sitting there in the Western Conference.
Our friend C.J. McCollum tweeted, this all began when Ja Morant said he's good in the West. Ja Morant said, no, I'm good getting out of the West. And from that moment forward, the West just got loaded. And to Legs' point, let's put the odds up there, Cindy, if we can, and give everyone an idea of what our friends at Caesars Sportsbook think all this does as far as chances of winning the championship. Well, look at Phoenix. I mean, the Suns have just vaulted up to being the favorites in the West and the #2 favorite across the entire league. They were 18-1 before they made this Kevin Durant trade. Now all of a sudden plus 500 behind only the Celtics, who've been the best team in the sport basically from day one of the season. You see Giannis right behind them. The Nuggets continue to be good. The Sixers. Oh, by the way, and you just heard Legs allude to it, we had D'Angelo Russell traded to the Lakers, part of a Russell Westbrook deal, which is fascinating. And I guess, Woj, it does beg the question that Windy just brought up. You guys have a 5-hour trade deadline special coming up today, and we may by no means be done here. The Nets have this excess of good players. Russell Westbrook could get bought out. What, if anything, should the fans be watching closely for? What names are on the radar here that could still wind up being moved, that could be consequential before the deadline this afternoon?
Greeny, I think one of the most interesting names to watch today is Toronto's OG Anunoby, who had tremendous interest around the league in recent days. But think about this now in the Western Conference. There are any number of Western Conference teams who put in fairly significant offers for Anunoby. That's really terrific two-way forward in Toronto. But now with Kevin Durant in Phoenix, in the Western Conference, teams like Golden State, Memphis, who are going to have to be able to get through or try to get through the Suns, has the price on Anunoby, the potential return that could be there for the Raptors. Does that go up today? And I think, listen, I think there's still a lot of question about how serious Toronto really is about moving Anunoby or any of the other significant players that they've had in trade talks between now and the trade deadline. They may just be gauging what the marketplace is to see what the value of these players are, and then you kind of reevaluate it in the offseason. But certainly it leaves open the potential that somebody really blows Toronto away on an offer for Anunoby because what he does well and his skill set, it's at an even greater premium if you're trying to get through KD in the West this season and beyond.
With the way this thing went, I've had people suggest to me this is going to be the end of the super team era in the NBA. Windy, when you hear people say that, what do you think?
I say there's a new super team that just got born in Phoenix less than 12 hours ago. So no, it's not the end of it. And, the league is very, very much rollicking right now. And, after everything that Kyrie Irving has done over the last 3 years, he was put on the trade block on Friday, and by Saturday, 4 teams, some of them I consider very smart and well-run, were making offers for him, trying to build a new super team, and there was a new kind of quasi-super team built in Dallas off of it. So no, it's not ending. And just to underscore the way the turbulence is moving through the NBA right now, yesterday, you're right, Greeny, we've been talking about the Raptors for weeks because they had potentially the most interesting situation. Guess what happened last night? The Raptors bought. The Raptors made a big trade last night. Well, it's a big trade normally in normal times. They trade for Jakob Poeltl, a high-quality center, who they're going to say, you know what, we're not going to trade OG Anunoby. We're not going to trade Pascal Siakam. We're going to try to actually move up. Our big hole in their roster is our center. We're going to trade a first-round pick and get Jakob Poeltl, and this is going to be great. And now, all of a sudden, their whole situation changed. And so now the market is going to be flooded with wings. So yeah, maybe you were offering 3 first-round picks for OG Anunoby yesterday, and you were tired of Toronto him-hawing about what they were going to do. Well, now here's Brooklyn. Brooklyn's got way too many wings. I assume Brooklyn still wants to intend to compete because they don't control their first-round picks going forward. So they've got to restructure their roster again. And now there's a bunch of teams out there that have been trying to get wings, like the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks have been trying to get Jae Crowder for months. They couldn't do a deal with the Suns. Now Jae Crowder is a net. Now you call the Nets. That's a whole different situation. The Bucks woke up with a whole new, thought on the world after last night. And this is what's going to happen. It's going to be a cascading effect over the next few hours.
All right, again, because then the trade deadline is this afternoon. And as you can see, all morning long for you here, I've got exactly the people you want to hear from, and there are more to come. But, Legs, in the 1 minute I have here before a very quick break, right this minute, who's the best team in the West? You got Dallas, just got Kyrie. They looked very good last night against the Clippers, and they didn't even have Luka. You've got, obviously, Denver remains very good. Phoenix just got. Who's the best team in the West, in your opinion, right this minute, Legs?
Right now, on paper, you're expecting the Phoenix Suns to get to the finals. I am. But here's the thing. The Denver Nuggets are the best team as we sit here. This is going to take some time. It's a short window to find your chemistry with Durant, Chris Paul, Ayton, and Booker. But when you look at what I just mentioned, they've got a point guard, a 2, a small forward, and a big. That's the best starting lineup on paper. But the Denver Nuggets right now are the best team. Phoenix has the most talent, and I expect eventually they're going to be the team representing the West if they stay healthy.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.